The Outlanders Journey. Tier 1, Level 2. Chapter 2. Bach. You finally arrive at the unassuming cave entrance. You haven't traveled very much, but you're already exhausted. For the last couple days, you haven't slept well, and you've also barely eaten today. Your belly begins to rumble. Ernog motions for you to help him push away the boulder. He crouches down and presses his shoulder against one side, while you grip and pull from the other. On his count, you both exert your strength at the same time. The base of the rock is wedged deep into the dirt. Today, though, it feels especially heavy. Your fingers are slipping. It's like you've grown weaker. Dura slinks behind you and grabs hold of the boulder. With her extra guiding hand, the rock finally begins to wobble. Then it topples over and collapses to its side with a heavy thud. The scent of roasted sweet potatoes immediately wafts out of the entrance, and your mouth starts to salivate. You gaze down into the familiar dark tunnel, at the calming light illuminating the end. Ernog dusts his hands and signals for everyone to go in. Mock and the direwolves race inside. Laurel ducks his head down, with one hand on the small of Myalee's back. The remaining group seems to wait on Ernog. The elf bows his head. I am profoundly grateful for your hospitality and your trust. Ernog sneers. You will earn your right to sleep each night. I may not kill you, but I will also not stop anyone who wishes to slit your throat in the night, unless you prove your worth. He points down the tunnel. The elf bites his lower lip. Yes, I understand. He lowers his head as he steps down. Ernog slips in and follows closely behind. The Aarakocra and the human glance at each other, and then at you. You gesture politely for them to go ahead. They nod and duck inside. You're still not sure what to make of these 3 new additions. The Aarakocra, out of all of them, seems the most earnest, but that may simply be your biased perception of Aarakocra in general. The human is observant and has quick reflexes, but she's soft-spoken and keeps her presence hidden. Finally, the elf, out of all of them, is the only one you know with certainty is a foolish person. For that reason, you dislike him. Perhaps you even hate him. He is, in many ways, you. You and Dura enter the tunnel, and together you shift the boulder back into its place. Faster than you anticipated, it begins to roll on its own, and you lose your grip again. Dura yells something in Orcish and snatches your arm out of the way. The boulder slams against the opening, just barely missing your fingers. The Aarakocra and the human have turned around at you. Dura puts her hands on your shoulders and stares into your eyes. No sleep? She asks. You shake your head. Cold? She asks. Ground hard. Hungry? You shake your head. No, everything is good. You okay? Asks the Aarakocra, approaching and reaching his hand out. He has large, unblinking eyes that seem to pierce into your soul. You wipe your sweaty hands against your lap and nod sheepishly. Laurel and Myalee are so far ahead of you now. You avert your eyes and shuffle ahead. You descend to the bottom and emerge into the warm, torchlit cavern, where you find Laurel and Myalee standing by the entryway, waiting for you. Along with the roasted potatoes, you smell something medicinal and floral brewing over the coals. Lasha is pounding something with a mortar and pestle. You see Mock, Ernog, and the elf sitting beside her, chatting quietly. Laurel pats you on the shoulder. Everything all right? I was just about to go back up and look for you. You nod. We were putting the boulder back. Ah, all right. As long as you're fine. You nod. During the day, only about half of the orcs remain in the cave. Everyone else is out scouting or hunting. The ones here prepare meals, fetch water from deeper within the cave, manage inventory, and tend to the sick. You notice they're still working, but they're watching the elf intently, some with hateful eyes. The Aarakocra and the human step into the cavern, peering around. The human makes eye contact with Laurel for an extended period, and you wonder if they are communicating telepathically. Dura steps in and ushers all of you to sit with Lasha. You all gather together and form a circle around the fire. Ernog and Lasha are already whispering intensely in Orcish, and it feels like you are interrupting a private conversation. With ferocity, Lasha pounds away at some leafy green mash as she admonishes Ernog, who only sighs and rubs his temples. He puts a hand on Mock's shoulder for support, squeezing. Mock's nose flares, and his eyebrows scrunch up to something Lasha says, and he sits up and declares something almost too loudly. Lasha stops grinding the pulp. She turns to Mock and hisses a retort. Instantly, Mock's posture goes slack as he crumples back down into himself. Lasha sets aside the mortar and pestle. She wipes her hands clean, then gives the pot of boiling leaves a quick stir and lets the steam waft into her nose. You can sense everyone around you sitting stiffly, waiting on her with their heads tilted down. She pulls the boiling pot off the coals, and then strains out more of the leaves into the mortar. Then she picks up the bowl and squeezes it tightly in the nook of her elbow. Rhythmically, she grinds away. No one speaks for nearly a minute. Without gazing up, she finally says, "What do you gain by helping us?" You straighten your back to the sound of her voice, though you realize the question is not directed at you. The Aarakocra and the human look at each other, and then turn to the elf. "Elder Lasha," says the elf, bowing deeply, "please allow me to extend my deepest apology. I do not care for your empty statements or your remorse. I knew, from the moment I saw you, what kind of man you are. A cravenly fool who cannot decide with his own heart what is right and wrong. You treated us like we knew nothing, like we were ignorant. You believed yourself to be truer, wiser, because you saw both sides." She gestures widely at the expanse of the cave. "Well, here it is. Behold your truth. Behold your wisdom." She points at the sick. "This is what you have wrought." The man inhales through his nose and exhales shakily through his mouth. "Yes," he says, his voice cracking. "Yes, I understand now." Lasha ignores him, and she gazes at you. "My dear, will you not help us into the forest?" "We will," says Laurel before you can answer. "We will do our best to get you in, but it's better to have the Everlight followers." She scowls at him. "We've flourished in these lands autonomously for generations, and now we are forced to rely on our own murderers to live?" Laurel shakes his head. "I'm sorry. I wish we had the power to do more." Lasha maintains eye contact with you. "Do you also believe you are powerless?" You glance at Laurel, and then back at her, and then down at your quivering hands. "I'm not strong enough." "Elder Lasha," says Ernog, "there is a point in which we must prioritize our own survival over our own dignity." "Do not take me for a fool," says Lasha. "I know fully the situation we are in." She sighs. "If the rest have reached this agreement, then I can only allow it. You are our leader, and your will shall be executed. However," she gazes at Laurel, and then at Mock, "there will be no teaching of magic to our people. I expressly forbid it." Mock rises to his feet and storms away with a huff to where the direwolves are lounging. "I know the furbolgs are magic users, and it is your right to do so, but I will not allow you to teach it to us." You see Ernog, hand to his face, shaking his head. He doesn't speak. Laurel is biting his lip, clearly contemplating if he should protest. "Elder Lasha," he finally says, "forgive me if I speak out of turn, but it seems that healing magic is something that will greatly benefit your sick and injured right now, and we may need it for the journey ahead. Mock is capable of healing. He has that ability." "We know how to heal our own. We have flourished off the boons of this land, which provide us all that we need." She pushes herself to her feet with a groan, and you hear her bones crack. Dura takes her by the hand and helps her up. "Come," says Lasha, pointing at the Everlight followers. "One of the foraging groups has found these horsemint leaves. Lend me your hands and help me treat their burns. Let this be the start of the good you shall do." All of them bolt up, as if competing to see who is the most eager to help her. "My dear," Lasha says to you, "will you help me carry the cauldron?" "Oh," you say. You nod and leap to your feet as well. Immediately, your vision goes black, but you manage not to fall this time. You take the cauldron by the handle, surprisingly heavy, and you waddle behind Lasha to the resting area. You've been helping some of the sick these past days, and you've gotten to know the names of a few. Ela and Shalthu are the most critically injured, their burn wounds leaving their faces and limbs completely disfigured. Urim and Alag are recovering from the spider plague, but the residual scars have damaged the nerves in their legs, leaving them paralyzed. Lasha hands you fresh bandages, likely stolen from previous raids into the town, and you kneel before Shalthu. You whisper a polite greeting, and she moans, lifting a finger towards you. You were taught how to dress wounds by a kind woman named Morn, but you don't quite remember some of the steps. You look around nervously. Lasha and the elf are currently applying the horsemint paste on Ela's neck and chin. Morn is spooning a bowl of soup into someone's mouth. The human notices you and approaches. She kneels next to Shalthu and offers to take the bandages out of your hand. "I can dress the wounds if you'd like." She is soft-spoken, so much that you have to lean in to hear her. You nod and offer it to her. Seeing this, the Aarakocra shuffles over and sits next to her. You watch the human very gingerly remove the bandages on Shalthu's arm, careful not to aggravate her wounds. Still, she groans in pain. The human strokes Shalthu's hair. The Aarakocra takes away the used bandages and helps the human unroll the fresh ones. "My name's Ark, by the way," he says, glancing at you. "I don't think we've formally introduced ourselves." You nod. "Hello." You glance at Laurel, who's still sitting by the fire with Ernog. They seem to be talking. "This is my friend, Errol." Errol peers at you with a single, bashful nod. They do seem like nice people, despite it all. "I'm Buck." "Who are the other furbolgs with you?" asks Ark. "My brother, Bayron, and my sister, Bella." Ark tilts his head to the side. Up close, his feather tufts look soft and fluffy. "Nice to meet you. We'll have to thank your brother later for speaking up for us." You notice Errol glancing over at Ark. You nod again. "He's very kind and smart." The bandages on Shalthu's face are removed, and you can see the swollen, bright red flesh. Shalthu is moaning loudly now, tears rolling down her unrecognizable face. She has no nose or lips. Her left ear is gone. Ark glances over Errol's shoulder. "I think I might have some healing left." "I thought you ran out," whispers Errol. "I might have a little more." He turns around at Lasha. "You think I should?" You gaze behind you as well. Lasha is busy focusing on Ela still, speaking quietly but forcefully with the elf. "Will you make her better?" you ask. "Maybe not all better, but she'll definitely be in less pain." Errol scoots out of the way for Ark to get close. Lasha hates magic and magic healing, but Shalthu looks to be in great pain. Perhaps it is okay, just this one time. You interpose yourself between Ark and Lasha, so she doesn't see. Ark closes his eyes and clasps his hands together, whispering a soft prayer. He touches his hands to Shalthu's chest, and she cries out in pain. "Shh, shh, shh," says Errol, combing her fingers through Shalthu's hair. Tiny flames flicker out of her burns. You wonder if Ark is actually hurting her, but then the skin begins to reform over the scalded flesh. Her wailing subsides, and she loses consciousness. Immediately, Errol starts dressing Shalthu's wounds again. "She'll need to sleep it off for a couple of days to heal the rest," says Ark. Errol smiles proudly at Ark. "You did well." Ark's eyes twinkle as he blinks rapidly. "I wonder why Elder Lasha doesn't allow magical healing." You turn to Laurel, but you notice Dura waving at you. In her hands, she seems to be holding the sweet potatoes. Maeli is scarfing down her food like a squirrel. You excuse yourself politely from Ark and Errol, and you amble over to the open spot next to Laurel. "It was nice meeting you," you hear Ark call out. You peer around, and you see him waving excitedly at you. You wave back sheepishly. Maybe they are good people after all. Closer to Ernog and the others, you can hear their quiet conversation now. "I simply don't think I am wrong for prioritizing staying alive," says Ernog. "Call me a traitor, but I've never subscribed to the idea of fighting to the death for your own honor and glory." Dura is patting him gently on the back. "I'm pretty sure everyone is in agreement," says Laurel. "Otherwise, Taira would be dead right now." Ernog shakes his head. "Who knows what they will do to him when I'm not watching?" Laurel notices you approaching. "Hey," he says. He pats the spot next to him. You plop down, and you see skewers of likely pronghorn meat sizzling on top of the coals. Dura breaks a sweet potato in half and offers both pieces to you. White steam rises from the fleshy interior, and your mouth begins to water. It's hot, but you're too hungry to slow down. Within a minute, you finish half, skin and all. It's delicately sweet and a little too dry to swallow at once, but you still manage to wolf it down. Laurel pats you on the back. Meanwhile, Dura flips over the meat, and it sizzles. You can see the browned crust on the surface, the bubbling rendered fat. It looks delicious. Meat is something you crave now, and after you eat it, it feels more substantial in your stomach than other foods, and you can go for a little longer. The nutrients of an animal are more potent, you learn. Silently, you thank the pronghorn for giving you and your loved ones its life energy. You promise to take care of Laurel and Maeli and Ernog and Dura and Mok and everyone else for the sake of the pronghorn's life. "What do you think of them, Bok?" says Ernog. "Who?" you ask. "The Everlight followers." You glance at them again. They've moved on to some of the less critically burned victims, and you see Ark making small talk with them as Errol carefully changes their bandages. "I think they're doing their best," you say. "They can heal." Ernog nods. "Yes, I am aware." "3 of us know healing spells now," says Laurel. "If we're to leave as early as tomorrow, we need all of them to at least be able to walk." "Yes, I know." "What do you suggest we do?" Ernog sighs. "Mok," he shouts, waving him over. Mok perks his head up from behind rock, noticing that Lasha isn't by the fire anymore. He shuffles over to your group and plops down by the fire. He grabs at a skewer, but Dura swats his hand away. Ernog smiles at his brother, wrapping his arm around his shoulder. "You did well with your healing today." "Anshan?" says Mok. "Yes." Mok squirms in Ernog's embrace, but you can tell he's flattered. "Really?" he says. "Yes, of course." Ernog peers at Laurel, then back at his brother. "Do you wish to learn magic?" "I thought I wasn't allowed to." "I will allow you. I'm the leader now, am I not?" "What if Elder Lasha sees?" "She won't see." "Are we hiding from her?" "Perhaps," says Ernog. "Or perhaps we are keeping her from over-worrying. She has a tendency to stay stuck to the old ways." He takes Mok's hand. "If we are to leave tomorrow, we will need more of your healing abilities. Can you heal some of our injured later tonight?" Mock hesitates, but he nods. Ernog turns to the rest of you. After lights go out, we will treat the injured. How many are injured? Asks Laurel. There are still 7 with the most critical injuries. 7? Says Laurel. I can heal maybe 2 more people. Our magic has daily limits. I see, says Ernog. We will be able to heal more after a night's rest, though. Ernog nods. Very well. Heal as many as you can tonight. Come morning, I will wake you before Elder Lasha awakens, and you can heal the rest. Will that work? Yes, provided the Aarakocra also offers his healing. Then I will speak with him too. He gets up. For now, get some early rest. The hunters should be back soon, and we will have a full supper prepared. The rest of the evening passes by rapidly. You get a nap in, though you find yourself tossing and turning to visions of Mr. Senos in your short rest. A little later than usual, Dura's hunters return with multiple jackrabbits and a few prairie chickens. For dinner, you try your first taste of poultry. The meat is stringier and less intense in flavor than the other animals you've eaten, and the flesh is much lighter in color as well. You notice Ark staring at the roasted chicken with a horrified look on his face, and he opts to eat only jackrabbit instead. After dinner, the orcs gather together in a large circle, and Lasha leads them through a prayer. You, Laurel, Maya-Lee, Errol, Ark, and Taida all watch from the sides. Her voice cuts through the otherwise silent cave, and glistening tears run down her face as she raises her arms. The only word you recognize her shout is Grumsh. There's an almost musical quality to her speaking, and soon, after she finishes, everyone else joins in to sing. The melody resonates like a slow and remorseful ballad, a low droning that swells with more harmonic layers. Ernog and a few of the men begin stomping their feet and clapping their hands in a rhythmic drumbeat. When it's finally time for bed, your body is so fatigued that you collapse into your bedroll and pass out immediately. Only hours later are you jolted awake by Laurel sitting up, with Ernog squatted down next to him. All of the torchlights have been blown out, but you catch sight of Ark and Mock standing a few feet away. You carefully get up, but Laurel rests his hands on your shoulder. He puts his finger to his lips, and you hear his voice in your head. Go back to sleep. You need as much rest as you can. Do you need help? Laurel shakes his head. I'll be okay. The fewer people, the better. Oh, okay. Good night, Bach. Good night. You're still exhausted. Your eyelids are heavy. As you slip back into your bedroll, you drift off to sleep, watching Laurel's back grow more distant. All of a sudden, he vanishes into the distant fog, and the cave blackens into an empty void. Laurel? You say. You sit up again, but your feet aren't able to move. You look down at your legs and see the web-like scars running down to your toes. Laurel? You shout. Laurel, come back! Bach, you hear. Laurel? A figure emerges from an expanding fog, a bit taller, the shoulders slightly broader, the elven ears much longer. Mr. Senos' form. He smiles down at you with the familiar expression you once saw as kind and calming. You now see it as condescension. Bach, says Mr. Senos, laughing. What do you think you're doing, my silly boy? I'm... Where's Laurel? You say. Where's Maya-Lee? I don't know, he says. You tell me. Where have you been running to this whole time? What are you doing in a cave? I'm trying to go home, away from you. He squats down, and he combs his fingers through your hair. Your body freezes in place. You feel the scars on your legs spreading up to your chest and arms and neck and face. You've become so cruel with your words, he scoffs. Is that what these savages have been teaching you? You wish to shake your head, but you can't. His fingers run across your jawline. You exert all of your power to try to shove him back, but it's like there are chains holding you down. Buck, do you know what your mother told me when she relinquished you to me? She told me that I was to treat you as one of my own, and I promised her that I would, and I have. My sincerity and my ardent love for you has never ceased after all these years, after everything you did to me in spite of my love. You will always be my son, my boy. You press and pull with all your might. You feel your skin and muscles stretch and tear. A pressure builds in your eyeballs, as though they're ready to burst out of their sockets. With one more shove, something shatters, and the chains go slack. You swing your arms violently at Mr. Sanos' face. It lands with a dull thud. Mr. Sanos shakes his head. He grabs your hand and closes his fingers around your knuckles. Tighter and tighter he squeezes. The frigid cavern walls start to close in around you as well, as they cram against your shoulders. Your throat tightens, and you can no longer breathe. You think you can run from me so easily? You truly think I'm dead? He grabs your face, digging sharp nails into your skin, and he leans into your ear. I've been searching for you this whole time, and I'm very close to finding you. Turn back now before it's too late. If you keep running, you will only regret your decision. I will make sure of it. He lets go, shoving your head back. The cave expands, and you drop to the ground, gasping for air. You curl into a ball, and you listen to Mr. Sanos' loud boots stomping away. The echoes reverberate against your eardrums. It's silent and cold. You feel a soft tapping on your shoulder behind you. Buck, you hear. You twist around, raising your arms, ready to strike at Mr. Sanos. Your eyes open to bright torchlight, warmth and the sound of chit-chat and movement. You blink. Laurel has his arms held up defensively. Laurel? You say. You look around to find the orcs quickly packing their things, getting ready to leave. It's morning already. You lower your arm. I'm sorry. It's all right, he says, smiling. You pull him in for a hug. He feels so frail in your arms. I'm sorry, you repeat. Hey, it was just a bad dream. He pats you on the back. Come on, let's get you something to eat, all right? You nod. Okay. As you pull yourself up, you hear a tiny, echoing remnant of those familiar bootsteps, that recognizable laughter. I will find you, you hear.